the CFA Franc to be replaced by the African echo. The CFA Franc will disappear from West Africa. Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara announced it on December 21, 2019. In agreement with the other West African heads of state, he said, "We have decided to reform the CFA franc. The 8 countries that use the CFA franc will adopt the new currency, which will be called the ECO. They are Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Senegal, and Togo. The currency will be renamed the ECO next year, and French officials will no longer be represented on its governing bodies," Ouattara said.
Hello family, this is African Esquire TV and I'm your host Tierney Cherie. Before I get started on today's subject, I wanted to point you towards We Charge Colonialism's YouTube page. I just did a new video on woke capitalism that I posted on our YouTube page, and it's talking about this image of DeRay McKesson, who is of course one of the leaders of Black Lives Matter, and it's an event that he went to which was sponsored by Wells Fargo. So if you want to see what I talked about on that video, please go over to the We Charge Colonialism YouTube page. Link will be down below. And please subscribe. Our organization, we're trying to raise awareness about the fact that African Americans, we need the right to self-determination in our local communities, which means the right to local control over our own affairs. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go over to our YouTube page. So many of you probably heard by now the great news that came out of the continent of Africa, that France has finally had to basically give in and withdraw the CFA Franc as the currency inside of several West African countries. So I'm going to go through this rather quickly. I just want to read through this article and then I'm going to just give my thoughts on these developments. 8 West African countries exit France-controlled monetary zone to create eco-currency. 8 African countries are severing colonial financial ties to France by backing out of the French-backed CFA Franc monetary zone on the continent. The move was announced at a press conference in Abidjan, Ivory Coast on Saturday. It involves all 8 of the countries in West Africa who will now refer to their common currency as ECO. The Ivorian president, Alassane Ouattara, described the occasion as a historic day for West Africa. France's President Emmanuel Macron and the country's finance minister were also in Abidjan. Now, keep that in mind. The French president was also there. Macron was in agreement about the uniqueness of the day in history and added that the ECO will see the light of day in 2020. All of the countries leaving the monetary zone will also withdraw the reserves in the French treasury. Under the agreement with then colonized African countries, 50% of their reserves were taken to be kept by France. There are, however, 6 more African countries that are still logged into the monetary zone. They are Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, as well as Gabon. It has been reported that the departure of the 8 West African countries took 6 months to negotiate, what has been likened to the Brexit. Earlier in November, Benin's president, Patrice Guillaume Talon, revealed that the former French colony unanimously agreed that the CFA franc was not a good model. We'll skip over this because we talked about this previously. According to the International Monetary Fund, the 14 countries in the zone account for 12% of Africa's gross total domestic product. Their economies have expanded since France initiated financial reforms in 1994. France has, I'm scrolling through. The article will be posted down below. And it finishes off by saying, even if it can be counted a victory that African countries are leaving the CFA franc zone, one has to bear in mind that the adoption of the ECO by half of the economic community of Western states will not go down well with some. Ndongo Samba Cilia, author of The Last Colonial Currency, the Franc CFA story feels strongly about the adoption. Speaking to the New York Times, Saylor described what the 8 countries have done as a hijack of the plans of the ECOWAS that had. It remains to be seen what the latest venture will yield. The ECO will still be pegged to the euro, and that in itself may not spell much of a change. Now, several things. Number one, before we get started with the little intricacies, let's just say this is definitely a victory. This is a victory because the fact that France was allowed to keep 50% of the reserves in a different time in history, it's been 60%, it's been 65%. The fact that they were able to keep another country's reserves inside of their central bank, that was just a blatant robbery. So the fact that this has been abolished is something that African people all over should feel proud about, and we should feel proud about it because it came from us. All of us who have been talking about this issue, all of us who have been posting about it on social media, or people on the ground inside of those former Francophone countries who have been raising hell, who have been protesting. We are the ones who should be celebrating, feeling proud, particularly us who are actually on the ground. You should be feeling most proud because your protest, your fight has actually yielded some results. Now, I want to talk about the fact that racism, and this is racism, if you're not clear, the fact that France has been abstracting all of these benefits from African countries, it might not seem like racism because you don't see someone saying the N-word, you don't see someone, beating black people, you don't see the white man doing things blatantly, but this is racism because the relationship is one based on racism, and that is European exploitation of Africa. Now, with racism, something that we have to understand is racism doesn't go away on its own. It will never go away. It will never go away peacefully. It is willing to evolve, but it's not willing to dissolve. It only takes it takes having to go away by force. It will not go away willingly, peacefully on its own. So what I mean by that is the fact that this was a racist, white supremacist situation that was going on, the fact that a European country has been colonizing these African countries for so long and still has been allowed to abstract wealth from it, that was obviously a white supremacist, racist structure, right, of economics. Now, it's not going away. It's evolving. And you see this inside of multiple situations. When you just think about colonialism, right? At one point, the Western powers openly, blatantly colonized Africa. Now, at one point, they had to evolve and become neocolonialism. Now, is neocolonialism better than colonialism? In some ways, absolutely. You don't have someone else who can say out in the open, yeah, I own you. You don't have another country saying that you are a subject of us. So you don't have a lot of these certain things that happen, but you have other things that are happening behind closed doors, and that's when you have neocolonialism. Now, Kwame Nkrumah said this, and I agree with him. Although colonialism is not technically as bad as neocolonialism, neocolonialism is actually worse because the identifiable oppressor, knowing who's oppressing you, knowing who's colonizing you, knowing who is the one who is calling the shots, allows the people to protest, allows the people to actually know what they're dealing with. If you don't know what you're dealing with, if these deals are done behind closed doors, if you don't know that France is making secret deals with the Ivory Coast to take certain things from them, if you don't know that these people are doing things that you'll never hear about, contracts, that they're making very favorable donations to these presidents, that things are happening behind the scenes. If you don't know that, you can't protest it. And when you see the injustice happening, the only thing that you see is a black man, the president of whatever African country, that person being the oppressor. You don't see the fact that that person has people behind him who are pulling the strings. So I'm saying this to say about this situation. Absolutely, it is a definite victory. However, we have to know that it's not the end of French colonialism inside of these countries. And the fact that it happened willingly, that it happened with the support of the French president, tells you, number one, that it's not going away, it's not going to disappear, it's going to evolve. And in particular, keep in mind, I just did a video on the fact that the French president has been very vocal lately about the fact that anti-French sentiment has been damaging the relationship, or I would say his ability as a French the person as French's president, has damaged his ability to continue on with the French causal relationship of exploitation in Africa. Meaning, the fact that people are upset about France and their exploitation of Africa that has been hurting France. It's been causing a lot of sentiment. It's been causing a lot of nervousness. So he had to do what he did. He had to withdraw the CFA Franc because he's seen what time it was. Basically, the people have been pushing back so much that it was clear that they were not going to allow this to happen anymore. Unfortunately, what I do believe what will happen, as happens with neocolonialism, is because this official colonial policy is withdrawn, that the people will stop protesting. The people will stop calling it out, calling out racism, calling out exploitation, calling out colonialism, because it's not official anymore. So I'm saying that to say, we know that for a fact that the French president has been doing this behind closed doors. We know it. Because number one, a lot of these countries that have basically said, okay, we're no longer going to have the franc, they have a good, relationship with France. Meaning the Ivory Coast president, for example, he's one of France's biggest puppets, right? Him and Macron are like this. So you think that he would try to take away a currency that would damage that relationship and still be in good with Macron? No, absolutely not. So he's doing this because there's something going on behind the scenes. He's made some type of guarantee to the president behind the scenes. And this is what I'm talking about. We won't know. It'll probably take, if we ever find out what's happening behind the scenes, we're lucky if we do find out, because more than likely we won't. And this is the damaging thing about neocolonialism. So I'm saying this to say, absolutely, this is a victory, because the fact that they've been allowed to do this unabashedly for so long, withdraw money and have it in their reserves, in the French reserves for this long, is criminal. Now we have to make sure that we don't let up and that we take it up a notch, because neocolonialism will continue, and it will continue in a covert way. So the best thing that we can do is, now that we've got this victory, we have to really educate ourselves and read and learn about neocolonialism. Read books like The Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Read these books and learn the fact that there's another level to this. There's a level where the countries are giving aid to countries, and it's supposed to help the countries, but really it's kind of like a way to blackmail or bribe the leaders of African countries to do what France or what the United States or what China wants them to do. These are the types of tactics we're dealing with, and these are the type of tactics that unless we're smart on and privy on, that we won't know what to do about them. Just a small thing. You might be wondering, well, if they're hidden, what do we do about hidden things that we can't control? Well, this is why we have to be against capitalism, because capitalism is what allows these hidden agendas to be done. Capitalism is whenever you can have one company own something that should belong to everyone. And in this case, it could be something like gold. It could be something like cobalt. It could be something like uranium. It could be any type of natural resource that should belong to the African people. You have corporations owning it. And unless we come out against that, then these types of deals that happen behind the scenes will continue to happen. We have to have the people make a claim to the natural resources of Africa and say that we own these communally, meaning we will share the profits of these things that are on the land that we live on, where our ancestors are from. These are the ownership of, this is the property of African people. If we don't do that, then neocolonialism will continue to do what it has always been doing, and that is hide behind these secret agendas and hide behind these people who can't be held accountable because things are being done behind closed doors. So if you were wondering, how do we keep track of that? That's how we keep track of it. We have to make sure that we're making a claim for communal ownership of our natural resources. So that's all I have on this subject. Like I said, I don't want it to be a downer, but this is definitely a victory. So congratulations to the people who have been fighting, and for the other people of the other countries that have not yet gotten rid of this horrible currency. And you know what? I forgot to even mention the fact that the new currency is being pegged to the euro, meaning it's still a colonial currency in a way. A lot of other countries' money is also pegged to the euro outside of Africa. Obviously, a lot of countries are pegged to the United States dollar. So it's still a colonial relationship, absolutely. And what we really want is a currency that's going to be completely African. the gold standard, if we were to do that, that would be a completely African currency that would actually benefit Africa beyond everyone, because Africa has more gold than other continents. So that's another level. Obviously, the fact that it's pegged to the euro means that it's not going to be a completely independent currency, and that's what we need. Not sure why they wanted to peg something to the euro when the euro is dying right now and not even doing that well. But like I said, it's still a victory. So congratulations to the people who have at the very least, gotten rid of this horrible currency. And please keep pushing. Don't accept just, something that's just okay, like, oh, it's just pegged to the euro. Fight for a completely independent African currency. And that is the next step. That's the way that we're going to take this to the next level and one-up it. Because if we don't one-up it, you know that they're going to come down harder on us. And we're going to be in a worse position than we were in before. So that's all I have on this subject. I will see you guys in the next video.